Thanks for sharing this, Esther. Also, let us now move from research to practice, and I'm very happy that with us here today is Esther Mwaura. She is the founder and the coordinator of GROOTS. GROOTS is a grassroots women's organization in Kenya. So please, Esther, can you share some of your insights from the grassroots?
Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful to be here. And GROOTS invest a lot in working with grassroots women who live in poor communities. We are very sensitive to how we refer to those who live in poor communities. We believe they are not poor. They are people with resources and capacity, so we invest in working with those women. And our experience in resilience building and in our traditional development work, we are alarmed how much of the work that grassroots women do is not recognized when we define policies and programs. And what is clear, and that's what Neha just said, is that if we look, you use gender lens to look at how do we program and develop our policies, we are then able to look at who is doing what, who is most impacted, what roles and differentiated capacities they have so that we can enhance on that. For grassroots women, and I think that's what Ruth said, is that they have for a long time coping with stresses and shocks. So when we do not build on what we know, we fail to build on innovative experiences that they have been able to draw to. I want to bring experiences that I have seen with grassroots women who live in semi-arid regions of Kitui. And when, for a long time, these grassroots women, when land became unbearable, most of the men and the young able men moved to the cities to look for jobs. But the women remained there, and because they did not have much capacity to till the land by themselves, they organized in many groups, and they were tilling their land in groups. And what would happen when there was very big droughts, and there was opportunity to get relief food, and they would be asked to pay with their labor, they were asked to go and do labor as individuals. They were used in the past to work as collective. And so this defranchised their capacity to work as groups. And over years now, we are seeing groups and organizations reinvest in building this group, which we would not have done if we actually understood that groups works best. Grassroots women have developed capacity to work as collectives and been able to deal with shocks and stresses. And I can give many, many examples of how we have actually failed to account for how grassroots women respond to shocks and stresses. And in our effort to do good work and to do development work that is targeted to support communities that don't necessarily impact and build on what innovations that communities do have already and know how to do best.
For sharing this, Esther also would like to comment.
Yeah, in traditional African societies, South, West, East, and North, you'll always hear one word that it's more mentioned with the Southern African language, the Ubuntu. And Ubuntu is practice where everything that is done for everyone's good. And that is how African societies are organized. So there has never been anything in the traditional African society as lack of trust. And I think with the emergency of colonialism in most of African society, particularly where people were told you are better than the other, and of course with exclusion where people have been pushed to compete for space because they've been left out and they can't see what space exists there, that has actually stemmed up competition that we are now trying, and I think that's where that question is coming from. How do we trust each other because we have lost trust? And I think nobody knows better how to build trust and how to work together than grassroots women who are living in poor situations, who who knows that the best of their times and the best of their survival depends on their social networks. And they have done many things to live together. And I think if you can study how HIV and AIDS pandemic in this continent has been stemmed down by home-based care providers who, when the hospitals could not cope with the amount of pressure, it's the grassroots women who walked in from house to house, looking at those who are bedridden. They're the people who are taking those ones who are sick to the hospital. They're the ones who are communicating with the health centers. But we do know that it has taken a lot of time. And I think what this tells us, and I think it's from that question, we cannot underrate the role of organizing. And we must know, and I think this is very important for development partners, organizing requires resources to get people to work together.
May I invite Esther, maybe you can also address the issue of the role of man that one of the participants in the audience asked from your angle.
Yeah, I think how do we build resilience through gender lens? I think one important thing is that we must start acknowledging and recognizing the role grassroots women play, particularly women who are living in poor situations, small-scale farmers, but also small-scale traders who in the slums and in the rural community are the ones that are actually in the supply chain of food. And as much as we want to work, and it's very important to work in big-scale value chains like processing, I think just enough to understand how women from rural communities are able to transport, and I see it all the time in matatus and buses in Nairobi, where women are transporting food to the slums in Nairobi and to the capital. How can we make it much easier for them? What kind of infrastructure investment that is required? How do we formalize the knowledge that women do have in making sure that they have for years been able to survive through shocks and stresses? And we build their capacity to do much more because we do know that things are changing. What is the additional capacity that these women require? The other thing that I think is that we need to stop seeing women and communities living in poor circumstances as victims and passive actors in development. And this must change in our attitude, the way we bring them into the spaces that make decisions on what needs to be done. So it's bringing the people who are most affected from the marginal to the mainstream, so that they are not just recipients of the work that we want to do and resources that we have, but they are active participants in defining policies and programs.
Thank you, Esther, for making this very strong point about the need to change our perspectives. Thank you for the two questions. Who would like to comment on those? So measuring resilience specifically for women and excluded groups, and the question of youth and exclusion. Who would like to start? Yeah, Esther?
Yeah, and I just want to go back to the violence one, if you allow me. And I think one of the more, when we speak to particularly food security and nutrition, access and control, or lack of it, for access and control of land among women, it's a major violence against women. And one of the things that Growth Kenya has done in the country is been able to develop a model where grassroots women are working with women, particularly whose husbands have died from HIV pandemic, and orphans who have been left, and where we know that guardians are taking these children as a way of taking over their land. They take them, and when the children, the orphans leave their homes, then they are able to take over the land. And that also talks to the issue of including young people, because if children are left as children when their parents die, they will grow, they will be teenagers, they will require land. And what we've been able to do is set a program where communities have organized to protect and make public who owns land and have that data of the amount of land, how it's linked to the families so that it can be safeguarded. The women have now become part and included as part of the formal decision making. I will say in Kakamega, when we started working there in 2006, in one of the districts, there were not one single chief. But because of the work we did, now we do have 2 chiefs who are members of the provincial administrators. And they're very important because they determine when the land is being adjudicated or title is being written, who determines who is the real owner. And we also have in Central Province, in one of the districts, where we did not have one single chief. Today we have 9 provincial administrators. And we don't just bring women because they are women, but we do a lot of intensive capacity enhancement on the legal framework of the country, what it talks about laws. So it's really an integrated approach. But we also do have a program we are running with the World Bank. It's about enhancing access, market, and trade. And we realized that young people were not interested in farming. So what did we do? Part of the project allows for use of mobile to learn about where are the market prices, what are they? And young people really want to do to use the mobile. And so they are the ones that are going out, supporting women farmers, men farmers, to navigate where the prices are, and they are broadcasting the information to the women. They do not want to go to the field to farm, but they want to be coaches. They want to understand the knowledge, they want to know where the market is, and they want to have the capacity to negotiate prices. So we brought the young people to be part of the value chain by making sure they are integrated in that way.